Namaste and welcome to the Divas That Care Network. I'm your host, Gia-Raquel Rose, owner of Airs Above Yoga, and you are listening to Above the Ground podcast. This is your first time tuning in. Our network is in its 16th year and listened to in over 30 countries. As always, I would like to thank you for giving me the gift of your time. It is my honor to hold space with and for you. And I always have a nutrition based episode. Sometimes I I should say touch on Ayurveda. I definitely talk a lot about paleo lifestyle. I talk about my own struggles with preferring to not have animal protein in my diet when on a paleo diet, which are pretty counterintuitive and contradictory to each other, almost mutually exclusive, I would say. And in addition to that, one of the big themes of these nutrition based episodes are basically clean and healthy eating. I'd like to take it a step further and talk about, as we're talking in this series with regard to incoming and outgoing, right? What we're talking about transition. So the first yoga asana episode, which I referenced, and I hope that you can go check that out, is talking about moon salutes and the transition. So talking about not just the asanas or the poses themselves being of importance, but actually the fluidity of the linking of the poses, especially in a vinyasa style class, and how the transitions in the way that you move your body support the actual progression of the pose itself. So it's really foundation based. If you move through a motion without a solid foundation, or you don't take a moment to readjust from the motion to a static hold, the blossom of the pose itself doesn't have the space or room to grow effectively. So you may not have their balance like properly situated, right? You may not have your alignment quite right. You may have to make what I call micro movements or micro adjustments. And I didn't coin that. Lots of yoga teachers use that terminology. And I want to translate that into conscious eating. I had a great conversation with a friend of mine yesterday who, and we were talking about all the different things to eliminate, right? And mainly it was a gluten centered conversation and how she loves carbohydrates. I love carbohydrates. I've said it before, I'll say it again. Oprah, I love bread. I love it. I love it. I love it. More than pasta, I love bread. I've given it up. Paleo breads are not the same, and that's okay. And her comment was that she doesn't have a reaction to gluten. She doesn't have an issue with bread. And I'm not entirely sure that I have a gluten specific reaction. I certainly don't or have not been diagnosed by a doctor with celiac. So it's a grain free choice, not a gluten specific choice. And I can't think it's hurting anything. But, she loves bread and she's, her words, grumpy without her carbohydrates. And I paraphrase. And, I am also will say grumpy. So I have my favorite. I did an episode on the potato chip, the lovely, wonderful potato chip. And should potato chips be a part of a healthy diet? Probably not. I do the best and pick the healthiest ones with three ingredients: potatoes, olive oil, and I'm sorry, avocado oil and sea salt. And I don't eat them every day. But my happy place is a potato chip. Now, a potato is a nightshade. And if you're on a diet like an autoimmune paleo, nightshades, or if you have true inflammation, which is what the paleo diet is kind of targeting in the body, is that inflammatory process. Potatoes in general, nightshades, potatoes, tomatoes, peppers, and eggplants, among others, are potentially irritating for inflammation processes in the body. And because of that, you need to be mindful of how much you consume them and if you have a reaction. So there are so many different thought processes on diet, nutrition, and food that this episode could be one that goes down multiple rabbit holes, which is what it's been so far. But I really want to talk about the transition for every person because, as women and men, but as women age and our bodies change in a more drastic way than men's bodies. Everyone has their own hormonal shifts, but women truly have go through like a process, right? Your needs become different. Protein becomes even more important. And, we had the same conversation. Oh my God, I'm tired of hearing about protein. I'm tired of hearing about protein. Protein is huge. And if you are consuming animal protein, it's easier to get that amount of, you know, arguably necessary protein. Protein also has the drawback of kidney pressure. We'll call it pressure. Extra asking the kidneys to lift a little bit more than they may generally do for a lower protein diet. So every drastic measure has some sort of counterbalance, right? Every rule of thumb when you come to diet nutrition has the anti-argument towards it, right? I had a whole episode on how eggs are a superfood. There's a whole argument against eggs for women's health. A whole argument against, there's correlation with and I'm not even going to go down that rabbit hole. But for every yin, there is a yang, right? And so to that end, I think, in my humble opinion, the most important part, and I have touched on this before, but what this episode is going to focus on is not a food, not a healthy food. You know what they are at this point. I feel redundant, to be completely honest, listing foods. You know what they are. You know what everyone and their brother knows what's better to eat than something else. Fried, breaded, whether it's gluten-free or grain-free, slathered in oil, not healthy, not your best choice, right? Fresh fruits and vegetables, cooked vegetables at the moment until we get over the whole like lettuce fiasco, which I think I hope is behind us at this point. Fruits and vegetables, you can't go wrong. Even, again, nightshades, right? Certain cruciferous vegetables can have negative impacts. Onions and garlic can have negative impacts for certain people with certain dietary restrictions. So the main point of this is you need to listen to your body. And I have finally kind of come to the conclusion of what this podcast is about, what my yoga business is about, what my Reiki business, and I don't like to call it a Reiki business, but essentially what the holistic healing that I feel called to share with you in the different ways that I do so. And by you, I mean anyone and everyone willing to hear, to listen, to take a moment and hear the words that are coming out of my mouth. It is to deepen your connection with your own intuition and body. And to me, as a yoga instructor, originally, it has been easier for me to trust my own intuition as it connects to my body. I believe that we as a society have gone on a mission to derail that connection. And the more you are able to trust your body to communicate with you, first you have to understand how to listen, right? The first understanding is to quiet the mind, tap into the body, and create a communication network with your body and yourself. Whether it's triggers, whether it's just listening and paying attention. Pain is a great. Everyone knows that when something hurts, you stop doing it. If that is the basis for your understanding of how your body communicates with you, then please let that be the basis and start from there. Another way the body communicates is through tension. When you're talking about diet, it can communicate through, sorry, not classy, gas. It can communicate through nausea. It can communicate through things coming out in liquid form of either direction. It can communicate in and we had this conversation, my friend and I, in grumpiness, in waking up headachy. It can communicate in pain, right? There are so many different ways, and it took cleaning out, and this is why I'm always a big fan of doing at least a whole 30 or a gentle moderation cleanse to get your body out of like just pure garbage bag mode, right? Like if you have no or very minimal um, conscious eating habits and you are on the go and you're a grab and go kind of person, my advice to you is to, here comes the theme for the month, transition gently. And that doesn't mean that when you go whole 30 that you just stop all the things, which is what it kind of is. I would gradually, it took me when I went back to paleo the second time. The first time I went right into it and from keto. So it wasn't quite into it. I already done a lot of elimination, but I basically started removing dairy and adding meat. So at least there was some transition, but it was pretty aggressive. And the second time around, I knew better. I was older, maybe a little bit wiser, arguably. And I started first by eliminating grains. It was relatively easy to eliminate legumes, and then I cut the dairy. So I did it in stages. And if you are eating all of the things, then my best advice for a gentle transition, incoming and outgoing, that is the theme. What you are releasing or what is outgoing from your body, pick whatever you intuitively feel. Like if you ask yourself the question, or if you already know the answer, like popcorn. I loved popcorn. I loved going to the movies with my family when I was little, and I would get the biggest thing of popcorn. And I knew that I was going to feel like garbage for 2 to 3 days after I ate that popcorn. I thought it was the movie theater butter. I don't think it is. I think it's the popcorn. I think it's the corn itself. I don't do well with corn. I do better with bread than with corn. I don't know why. I don't know why. It's me. It's a me thing. Lots of people, gluten-free, corn is their savior. So, but I knew, and your body will tell you. So if you just ask yourself, what food should I eliminate first? One thing, pick it. You might get a hit. You might hear, visualize in your mind's eye, like have a feeling in your body. Whatever comes up for you, roll with it. That's how you develop your intuition and your communication with your body. And it's a process. Like yoga is a practice. Developing this style of listening to your body is a practice. So when you're talking about a transition, a dietary transition, and cultivating this connection with your body, you need to have the communication line open. And starting to create that is imperative. So one of the best ways is to check in with and this is more diet itself, portion control, intermittent fasting. I know there are health benefits to it. I have talked about it here. I don't practice it myself, mainly because I love my rise mushroom coffee and hot cocoa. And that would, with the non-dairy creamer that I use, would put me right out of fasting. So I don't practice that mainly because of that. With food itself, I kind of do practice that, but that is not the point of today's conversation. What is the point of today's conversation is very simply this idea of communicating with the body and ways that you can start to implement that. So when it comes to understanding your body's way of speaking to you, one way to do that is to start to pay attention to when you feel full. A lot of people, myself, I have a very bad habit, and I will be the first to accept responsibility for my bad habit. I don't eat a lot during the day, a lot of times because I'm on the run, and I drink my protein shake in the morning. I get my vegan protein powder. I have a half a banana and almond butter, chocolate almond butter, because it's me and I need my chocolate. I have chocolate protein powder, chocolate, so chocolate all day long in its various forms. And I have that for lunch because I'm running around, I'm teaching yoga. I can't, if I'm doing a lot of downward facing dog, I'm not going to have a heavy meal during the day. So I have my heaviest meal at night. Not ideal, because it's usually later than I would prefer. And by that time, I'm usually pretty famished. And so I go what I call like full shark frenzy. So the longer I wait, the hungrier I am by the time I finally sit down in front of whatever plate of food I have created for myself or wherever I'm sitting and about to eat. Generally, it is a full blackout moment of I'm just eating that entire plate of food because I have not had a lot of food all day. I have definitely had food and I'm not fasting and I'm not starving myself, but they are smaller meals that I am going to be able to still be as active as I need to be without having this like big meal in the middle of the day, which frankly is probably the healthier thing to do is that like European lifestyle of having that big, huge meal around like 2 o'clock and then a siesta and then, going about the rest of your day. I think for the metabolism, for the body, there's an argument to be had on that being much more beneficial than stuffing your face with some sort of protein yogurt at 8 to 9 o'clock at night. But nobody's perfect, myself very much included in that statement. So the point of this is to start to note when you feel full. So when you're in a place of I've waited too long to eat, I'm famished and full shark frenzy, that's when that off switch to your digestive system can be drowned out by the shark frenzy. So I don't recommend not eating that much all day and then binging at the end of the day. I don't recommend that. And that's been a habit of mine for many years. And I chalk it up to, habit, life planning, etc. So I will take responsibility for that. But the point is that we're trying to listen. And I will say that I think I've developed a decent amount to know that like, okay, I'm full now. I don't need to eat that other thing, or I don't need that entire bag of chips at 8 o'clock at night. That's okay. Like I said, got to leave room for a potato chip every now and then. So, ways to recap, understand, and start to develop a communication line with your body. And if you're already there, kudos, keep at it. We'll talk about the next thing next time. Pain. If it hurts, stop doing it. Right? Pain is the loudest, most aggressive way your body communicates with you. Tension. Tension, a lot of times, is a precursor for pain, right? Tension can also not be physical, but it can be mental and emotional. Jaw clenching, eyebrow furrowing, neck and shoulder tension in women and men. But a lot of, we've had the conversation of the back strengthening, the lat strengthening, and the weight of the breasts on a female body, like cultivating a forward rolling of the shoulders and a lovely turtleneck look in like a C curve, overly dramatized through the neck because of a lack of strength and stability in the middle of the back and extra weight on the front, right? So for women, maybe a little bit more due to the body mechanics than men, we have this unfortunate situation that occurs when we don't have the strength in our back. So I am always pushing women to strengthen their backs. Strengthen, strengthen, strengthen. Middle of the back, upper back, strengthen, strengthen, strengthen. Now, that being said, the tension aspect is one of those that can be mental, emotional, and physical. Pain, I'm sure there can be a mental and emotional capacity to it. I think stress headaches, right? Come to mind. Migraines come to mind. And there's whole arguments to how physical pain manifests in the body or disease manifesting in the body from long-term emotional dysregulation or lack of processing. Like I've always said, what you don't process mentally and emotionally stores in your body and sticks in your body. But what that is a massive rabbit hole. So before I get into that, we're again talking about the idea of ways that your body communicates with you that are fairly typical that you can start to really pay attention to develop this communication style with your body and to understand what it's asking for. So being full, noticing that feeling of fullness, being hungry, noticing, like for me, this was huge. People around me when I was growing up noticed because I would get hangry. Believe the term, pardon my French, bitch on wheels might have been used once or twice by my own father. Thanks, Dad. So I would get, hey, did you eat? As a question. As it like I'm a walking Snickers commercial, right? It is me. The call is coming from inside the house. So for me, where like I can become more aggressive, less restrained when I don't eat enough. So I make it a point to eat, even if it's not a lot, at certain intervals of the day so I don't become a bitch on wheels. Thanks, Dad. So, with that in mind, not only and knowing that I'm hungry actually is a thing because I drink, I always have a beverage with me, water, mushroom coffee, whatever it might be. So I'm drinking, I'm hydrating, I'm drinking quite a bit. And so a lot of times I won't feel hungry, or I'm so consumed in whatever it is I'm doing that I won't feel hungry. So the another way, in addition to the idea of feeling full, is the idea of noticing when you're hungry, right? Is it the mouth watering? Is it like a little empty pit in your chest? Like, what is it for you? What is it for your body? Is it being hangry? Does your mood shift and change? And then that starts to, again, much like the tension in the body, the correlation between your mental and emotional state and your physical body. They are not separate. They're just not. It's all mixed in together. So when we're talking about these transitions, things coming in and things going out of your life, of your body, what you are putting out into the universe as your mood, your demeanor, your interaction with other people is, it can be a direct correlation of what's going on inside you. If you ate something that didn't agree with you, if you woke up with a migraine, if you're in I've been in pain, not as I know there are people that live in chronic pain that have to take medication. If you're in pain even a little bit, it's very challenging to be, kind and generous and nice and bubbly. Like, no, you're in pain and you're irate, and it's like scratching a sunburn when someone even talks to you, because all you can think about, all you can focus on is the pain that you're in physically. So there's something to be said about that correlation. And in that vein, I will say that I had, I was trying to toy with this idea of lessening the animal protein. So I tried to reintroduce I can't call it non-dairy, but non-traditional dairy feta. So it was a sheep's cheese, right? And I picked a very nice original from Greece sheep's cheese. And it wasn't actually for me. I made it for the grand opening of the yoga studio, and it didn't all get eaten. So I didn't want to be wasteful. When I brought it home, I ate it. And I will tell, I can't prove scientifically that it had this effect, but I will say the morning after I ate it, I was grumpy, headachy, not my best self. I had a lot of tension, and I don't know that it particularly agreed with me. I'm not going to categorically say that feta is fundamentally bad for Gia, but I am going to say that I did notice that I woke up not my best self. And that's something to start paying attention to. One of the things that I recommend, if you are embarking on a process of cultivating a relationship with yourself, the good, the bad, and the ugly, I recommend having a daily intake outtake journal. I used this to help quit smoking when I was younger. And yes, I was a smoker, and I jokingly around used to say it was my favorite thing. And it's one thing that I know that I can't just go and smoke one cigarette, because I will tell you, I thoroughly enjoy it. And I had this epiphany recently where I had a conversation with someone we were talking about. I was like, when you realize that smokers are consciously making decisions to deep breathe, and the relaxed state that people think that they're getting from the nicotine, and they are, right? When you're in the addictive cycle and you have an addiction to nicotine and you then give yourself nicotine, you are calming that urge. You're also consciously taking 5 minutes to step away from whatever it is you're doing and sit and breathe. So I've always been a big fan of replacing anything for addiction, especially, and with diet, the replacement. You can't just take away, you have to swap. Swapping makes it infinitely easier. It doesn't matter what you swap it with, as long as it's not, something worse. Like, don't swap a cigarette for, I don't know, like some something worse. Okay, don't do that. But like, for example, for me, when I was quitting smoking when I was younger, I would go to the wall and do wall sits. If I wanted to have a cigarette, I would go and park my butt against the wall and strengthen my quads. That's a me thing. You don't need to do that. I'm just saying that was one of the things that I did. And it was a trigger and a flip in the mind. And this is how you start to train your brain. And I had a journal and I would write down how many cigarettes I had that day, if I had any alcohol that day and what it was, all the food that I had that day, roughly when I ate it. And this was my input. And then if you have the time and energy, you can, I would potentially do this in the morning, have the output, like how did you wake up? How did you feel? And note if there was any correlation between the food from the day before and the feeling from the morning before. But it's just a practice in consciousness. It's a practice in paying attention to your body and the physical manifestations of what you're taking in. And then the self-awareness of what you're putting out. And I know that I still need help with self-awareness. Everybody does. No one is 100% self-aware. Maybe some of the most devoted monks and, meditators who, maybe they are 100% self-aware. 9 times out of 10, us regular old human beings walking around in a 3D world, especially in the United States, probably not 100% self-aware. I'm going to go on a limb. I don't think people are going to argue with me on that. So it's about this multifaceted approach to your intuition and your communion with your own body. That will then develop into an intuition with, if you go in this vein, your higher mind, your higher self, your communion with the divine. If you get into that, and if you don't, that's okay. But please, if you do nothing else, develop and cultivate the relationship and the communication between yourself and your body. Because the more you trust what you get from your body, the more you will be able, if you choose, to bring that trust into what you get from your intuition, your higher self, your mind's eye, etc. And your mind is, let me rephrase, your brain lives and breathes and feeds off of what you feed it. So it's all connected. And that's why, talking about the food, the healthy foods, I mean, at a certain point, we run out. There, you know what it is. And for me to keep saying, eat more blueberries, eat more purple foods, eat, eat healthy fats if you're going to eat fats. Salmon's good if you're going to eat mammal protein. Salmon's one of the better ones to eat. Lean protein's better. We should know that these are true things at this point in time. So it's more about, what do you do with the information that is available to you? And the information that is most important is what your body is telling you it needs. Whether that, like for me, one of the things that my body gets mad at me for because I don't listen is, and I touch my shoulder that I hurt, my neck injury, is I push myself too hard. I know that there's pain, or I feel, pain that I know isn't that like tweak pain where you have to stop and you're like, I don't push myself past that. But pain that is, hey, maybe you need to rest today and I don't rest today. That's a me problem. That's one of the things that I need to work on, right? Because I push a little bit too hard. It's the Aries nature in me. But for those that maybe don't push hard enough, right? Like if lethargy is the issue, get up, train yourself to move. If we have watches on that tell us when it's time to stand up, when it's time to breathe, when it's, set an alarm, get up and move around. It doesn't matter how far you go. Take a walk. Whatever your trigger is, whatever because people know. I believe in you that where where you're stopping yourself, where you're self-sabotaging with your diet, with your intuition, with your body, with your responsiveness to your body, So it's your choice to do better, and not everybody wants to. And they probably haven't listened to this entire episode because that's what this is about. So if you don't know where to start, if you don't have a communication network system with your own body, if you don't know how to listen to yourself, start where you are, meet yourself where you are, and potentially get a journal. Start to monitor on a daily basis what you're bringing into your body, good, bad, and ugly. And don't lie to yourself because you're only hurting yourself. And start to monitor your output. How do you feel? How do you feel when you wake up in the morning? How do you feel when you get into bed at night? Was there any point in the day that stood out to you about, hey, I snapped at this person? Hey, I got called a bitch on wheels. Like, hey, was there feedback that you received that might be noteworthy to the input and output, the incoming and the outgoing of your body, of what you put in and what you take out? Maybe make a note of that. And just take, what does it take? 10, maybe 15 minutes? Maybe less so in the morning because you're just waking up. Like, do you have an ache and pain? Does your back hurt? Does your neck hurt? Does your head hurt? Do you feel grumpy, rage filled even? Are you hangry in the first thing in the morning? Do you get hungry first thing in the morning? I'm not a hungry person first thing in the morning. I have to force myself to have that protein shake. What is true for you? Jot it down. That's a great first place to start. Then start to pay attention to the screaming of your body in pain, the analysis of your body when you start to have tension. Is it coming from physical tension? Is it coming from mental or emotional tension? Ask yourself these questions. Only you know the answer. You're not going to find it in a therapist. You're not going to find it with me. Only you are going to be able to start to understand. This is that communication. Allow whatever you receive to be true in that moment for you, and allow it to be subject to change without fault or judgment. So we've covered pain, we've covered tension. The full and the hungry. Start to feel when you're full, when you're hungry. Start to notice the pain that says rest versus the sharp pain that says stop immediately. Start to develop this understanding. Start to understand you're tired, you're fatigued. What are your cues for eye strain? What are your cues for turning off the mind and the brain and shutting down? Cues for rest. Rest is huge. I didn't dive into that because this was more of a nutrition episode, but rest is a huge part of it. How tired are you? When do you allow yourself the time and space to rest? All of these things are loosely nutrition based. And again, one of the things that I want to leave you with is the swap, the mental trigger and the swap. If you do decide to start a transition of elimination, a transition of dietary consciousness, don't go cold turkey and shock your entire system. This is true for people who drink too much alcohol and go cold turkey. Some people can do it. Some people go through withdrawal symptoms, right? So you need to be, I'm a big fan of tapering. When I quit smoking, I tapered until it was one, until it was none. Big fan of tapering and forgiving yourself for lapsing and starting again, meeting yourself where you are. No judgment. No, oh crap, I smoked 2 cigarettes today. I was only supposed to smoke 1. I'm going to screw it and buy a pack and smoke 5. Don't do that to yourself. Don't set yourself up for failure. Set yourself up for success. Yes, you did. Maybe there was a reason. Document the reason. Maybe you had a stressful day and you needed it. And one day you won't, and that'll be a beautiful day. Forgive yourself. Don't beat yourself up. It doesn't help. Also, don't let yourself off the hook if you know that you're doing it. Again, you know the answer. It's only you and whatever you pray to, if you pray, or whatever you do. So take responsibility. That's kind of what this is all about. Ownership and responsibility of yourself and your body. And make sure that you are making healthy or conscious choices, whatever it is for you. You know, popcorn is gonna give you pain. It's your choice if you choose to eat it and then suffer for it. If you do decide to transition into healthy and conscious eating, which I highly recommend, Do so gently and gracefully. Pick one thing to eliminate. Have a healthy swap. A lot of people, one of the main ones that people talk about on Pinterest is mayo and avocado. I don't like mayo. I think it's gross, but I do love avocado. I ate it for dinner last night. So make healthy fat swaps. If you get rid of gluten, find a gluten-free alternative, right? That doesn't bother you more, like corn or rice, right? Find a healthy grain. Quinoa was one of my favorites when I was eating grains. Find healthy alternatives to transition you from point A to point B with grace, with gratitude, and without self-flagellation, right? Because nobody's perfect. We all have our flaws. It's very hard to be 100% self-aware, but it's not, it's very easy to tell yourself a lie, but you'll still know that you're doing it. So maybe try to not do that. So with all of that said, I want to tell you how much I appreciate each and every one of you for sharing this space with me. And so I ask that you feel free to share the same space with your loved ones. For more goodness, you can follow me on all the socials at Above the Ground Podcast, or you can check out my website, airsaboveyoga.com. We are offering virtual classes, so you can work with me or any of my amazing instructors. And as always, don't forget to check out the amazing Divas That Care Network and my lovely sisters there, the episodes that they put out, and my other episodes. You can find us on Spotify, Odyssey, Apple, Amazon, iHeartRadio, and Buzzsprout, or anywhere else that you might feel guided. Again, my name is Gia-Raquel Rose, owner of Airs Above Yoga, and you are listening to Above the Ground Podcast, where every day is a good one.